In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of American Black and White. Tonight, we're stepping into a conversation that sits at the intersection of education, equity, and opportunity, a conversation that has the power to shift the trajectory of entire communities. For too long, underserved and marginalized students have been told to fit into systems that were never designed with them in mind. They've been measured by standards that ignored their brilliance, judged by metrics that overlooked their potential, and pushed toward futures that don't reflect their gifts. But every now and then, a leader emerges who refuses to accept that narrative, someone who understands that relevance is the hook. That hands on learning is liberation, and that when you give a young person the tools to build, they will build life, a career, a legacy. Tonight, that leader is with us. Troy Long is not just an educator, he is a visionary of career and technical education, a champion for equity, and a voice for students who have been overlooked, underestimated, and underserved. His journey from CTE student to national thought leader reminds us that education is not just about content, it's about connection, culture, and creating pathways that lead to real opportunities. This is a conversation about access, about community, about reform, and about the future we owe our children. This is American Black and White, and let's begin and let's introduce our guest, Mr. Troy Long.
Thank you for that. That was amazing. I felt super empowered when I was hearing that. I was like, I do some of those things. So I appreciate the intro, and I appreciate you having me on the show. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before we get into the show?
No, I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to share my experiences because I believe this is the key to education, and I believe that we have a marketing problem, and coming on platforms like this is to get the message out is the key to waking up people and letting them know that there is so many opportunities out there for them that they need to grab a hold of this because this is the easiest one to take advantage of.
Well, let's get into it. I appreciate that. So let's start out first. I want the people to get a little bit more of an understanding and get to know you, who Troy Long is. What was the moment in your own CTE journey that changed your life?
Like you said in my bio, that it started in high school. I kind of was this one of those smart kids that did just enough to get by. And when I finally went into a CTE pathway and I got to work and I got to be a member of DECA, it just showed me that it was more out there, more opportunity for me. I did the traditional college and everything, but when I found my way into education, I automatically gravitated to what I knew, which was CTE. And then I just saw the ability to, change lives and get kids jobs and get kids opportunities. And now there's so much more to CTE than when I was doing it. I can't, tell you the year and everything that it kind of aged me, but but the opportunities for the kids are tremendous, and I'm just here to make sure that these kids know, these parents know. Actually, the parents. This is mostly for the parents, so the parents can understand and not turn their nose up to CTE and realize the potential.
So, how did your upbringing shape your passion for education?
So I'm from Trenton, New Jersey, born and raised. I'm super proud of that. Our bridge says Trenton makes, the world takes, and I was a true indicator of that. I went to college, never came back until I got older. So now I'm back in the area now, but my city is going through some economic issues and everything. So all of our best and brightest are leaving, and that's what college does. College is an outsourcing material. You go to college, most people stay in those areas of where they go to college or move away. So we got a lot of people from our area that's doing a lot of positive things, but they're not in the area no more. With the CTE, it keeps people in the area and it keeps the money in the area and it keeps the area thriving and growing. So there needs to be a big push for inner city education so they can do CTE. Not to mention, it's a lot of money involved.
Oh, wow. So when you say there's a lot of money involved, you mean as into funding the program so kids have more of the opportunity?
From funding the programs to the students themselves making the money. So there's no debt for you and you're making money. You get an apprenticeship program, you could be 22 years old making 45, $50 an hour at 22 with no college,
Mhm. Oh,
no
wow.
debt. So, and you think about when you do the numbers on that, that's more than a kid that goes to college with $100,000 of debt and making entry level job. It's going to take them years to break even. With the
Right.
CTE kid, he's never in the hole.
Mhm.
And
So who poured into you early on and helped you see your potential?
so it was a mixture of people. I love the fact my community back then when we was growing up, your community took care of you. So my mom was like, he's not going to go left and do all this stuff where these people are doing this. So she was on me. I used to think she was extremely hard on me, but she saved my life, and I tell her that to this day. If it wasn't for her in the back of my mind, oh man, I gotta get off the corner. I gotta do this because I don't want to hear my mom's voice. Like I was more worried about her than the things that was happening in my environment. And she shaped and molded me. So, mom, I love you to death and thank you for everything. So I want to make sure she understands that and knows that. If it wasn't for her, I would not be here. I'll be brutally honest about that because I was more concerned with her consequence than the consequence of what I was doing out there.
That's where the neighborhoods used to be, where they raised the kids. It
That's
was
right.
like a real big village.
They would
Yeah.
tell on me. I'm gonna tell your mom you on that corner. I'm gonna tell you what. So
What challenges did you face as a young Black student navigating the education system?
um, I feel like I wasn't pushed. Like I did just enough to get by. I was smart. I was smart enough to be in these classes, but I was getting C's because I didn't have to do much. As long as didn't give you a problem, you didn't care. And that happens a lot to our students. As long as you ain't misbehaving or you ain't acting up, we ain't gonna say much. We ain't gonna push you to your full potential. Push those kids to their full potential because I wish I would have did that because I'm so far behind where I feel I could have be because I wasn't pushed back when I could have been pushed.
Mhm. So, when did you realize you were called to lead in this space?
So when education found me, I didn't go to school for education. Most CTE people don't. Um, Education finds you. I got into education because I wanted to coach basketball. And then I saw the big picture. I saw all the opportunity. I saw, man, I could just help more than these kids that's doing basketball, more than these 25 kids on the basketball program. I could help hundreds of kids. So on my lifetime, I helped thousands of kids over 20 something years. It's amazing. I love seeing them grow up. I love seeing them be productive members of society. But that one thing was the basketball that turned into me understanding what was, education about because we don't know what education is about until you get into it. It's not the stuff you see, the superficial stuff you see on TV, the superficial stuff the politicians are talking about. That's not true education. True education is when you got to help a kid, help the kid's family, and get them to the finish line, and do all these things to make sure the kid could do what's necessary in life. So
So, just in practice, when it comes to you having to do things with these kids or for your school, and making sure that they're actually getting what's needed. Um, how does that go to where you actually are doing some of the things that that I've read about how you're doing things, including your book and everything. But these things that you do, how do they get the opportunity of finding out these things that are available, and how can they learn about them?
So it's a process. So at first, it's supposed to happen in the classroom with the instructor. The instructor supposed to tell them one, two, three, like this is supposed to happen. This is in your curriculum. So this is what you're supposed to be able to do. You're supposed to, take this industry value credentials. You're supposed to join this CTSO. You're supposed to do these things in your pathway. Now, if they're not getting that, we have work-based learning coordinators that add supplemental stuff to it that helps them get jobs, that brings in industry people to talk to them, that we go to advisory boards. So it's like a village, so to speak, within each pathway to make sure everything works fluently. We're doing everything that the state requires, and we got to make sure we let them know. So that is embedded in what we teach and embedded in the curriculum. So we do a good job of making sure our curriculum is robust, that they have all of these opportunities. Sometimes the kid may think it's too much, but it's for them. Like, we make sure they have OSHA. We make sure whatever they do, it should be labeled in that pathway to get them to where they need to go.
So, how has your identity influenced your leadership style?
Um, just the way I was raised, like, I believe in give and take. I believe in talking to people. I never govern heavy handedly. I'm a pro teacher because I understand what they have to go through. They are the content expert. I never would act like I know more than them. If you're a plumber and I'm talking to you, I have to concede to your knowledge. You're doing that every day. I'm just here giving you these facts and figures. So I have to, it's a give and take. I have to respect what you do. And I don't think that happens enough from the administrative side. We think that we're the end all be all because we got the principal cert, the superintendent cert, we're a director, this, that, and the third. No, the teacher is the most important person. They're the connection to that student on a day-to-day basis.
Well, so what personal sacrifices have you made to pursue this mission?
A lot of time away from your family. I'm raising, I got my own kids. I feel like I've raised a lot of kids. So I got a lot of babies out there that I'm personally happy to see them do great. And then, it's nothing better than getting that message. Oh man, you helped me. You saved my life. You changed my life. I love that type of stuff because they needed that. I feel like somebody was there for me. So I should be there for as much as I can and for as long as I can for every student that I can, especially when they're from the inner city, because we don't have a lot of role models. We don't have a lot of people that look like us that's in these spaces that's helping them. So the give back has to be real.
So, what keeps you grounded as your influence grows?
Well, I don't look at it like that. Some people make jokes and say this thing, but I don't look at it like that. My mission is never going to stop as long as as long as I can do this. So I feel like we got to keep on working. It's sort of like if you use a basketball analogy. If I'm the best, I still got to train like Kobe and all of them, where they worried about someone taking their spot. So I got to keep on pushing to keep on helping as much people as possible, because when you get in a different position, I may be able to help more. So like the help won't stop. I just got to keep on going.
So, what does legacy mean to you?
Um, it's what you leave behind. Is what If they talk about me, I just want them to say that I cared about the kids. I cared about helping my community. I cared about helping all communities of people that look like me, because it takes a village, and it takes us caring and trying to do the right thing. Even if we're not successful all the time, we got to keep trying to do the right thing, because if more, as many of us try, then we can reach those goals. We could change these communities. We can change the narrative. Um, so that's what that's about. It's just I got to keep putting, one foot in front of the other each day.
So, what do you want young people to understand about their own power?
I need them to realize their power. Is the power is in the people. The power is in your mind and what you can believe in yourself, and try to do these things. Get this education. It doesn't have to be the traditional education. take advantage of opportunities. And that's what young people, I don't believe they do as well as they could do, because they let people talk them out of it. And with the social media and all that stuff, it's easy to get them sidetracked. And I just wish they listen to us sometimes, and not in the sense I'm trying to tell you what to do. Just take advantage of the opportunities. Listen, because you got to learn and experience on your own. But each generation, I would love for them to be better than me. So like my goal for my kids is for them to go further than me, and then I tell them your goal for your kids is for them to go further than you. If we keep doing it like that, we'll be in a better place.
Let's transition over to your purpose and power of CTE.
Okay.
Why is CTE more relevant today than ever before?
I believe I said it last time when I was with you, and it still resonates. It's the new millionaire class, point blank, period. CTE is because we had about 30-year period where they were just doing college readiness, instead of college and career readiness. And now there's a big, big gap in the job market. And these people are retiring, and there's no one to do was needed to be done for HVAC, for electrical, for carpentry. And now the prices are going up for the services because, listen, I can't get to you to next week. I can't do this because we don't have enough people to fulfill that gap. So now these people are making more money, hand over foot more money. And it's going to take about 30, 40 years for this to even out, because the way the education system was, they only wanted to put you're not going to college, you could go to Voltech. And they severely limited the amount of people that was in those professions. And now we're paying the price.
Yeah. So can you tell us, like the real premise and purpose of CTE and how it actually gets underneath that surface to push things up like it's supposed to be?
So it stands for career and technical education. So it is the education piece on it. But what I love about it is it meets the students where they at, and it's something that they're interested in. So you don't go into a pathway unless you're interested in it. So like, oh, I've been doing this since I was a kid. Now you go in that pathway, you're more likely to your attendance boost in school because, I got to go to my CTE class. I can't be not coming to school if I want to go do this. So it's a game changer, and it's super powerful. And it fills the needs of most local communities. So most of the class we offer, they are jobs out there in their community for it, because we do a comprehensive local needs assessment. So we're not just telling you to take this class, We're telling you it's light at the end of this tunnel for you, and it's money at that pot.
Wow. And so are you finding the reception with the students to be more receptive and wanting to get more and more of your students are getting into the program for that very reason of actually for the provisions that they want to do in life?
It's still like 50-50, because it's not the students who are going to make that decision. It's the parents. And I feel like the outreach needs to be towards the parents, so the parents can understand. Because at most parents, I want my kid to go to college and get a degree. I want my kid to go to college. And when these kids go to college and get communications, criminal justice degrees, those are the ones that most of those degrees, I say a high percentage, they're not working in their industry. So you got a college degree, then I see a lot of kids with communications try to get into education. And then we're like, well, you can't even get a certification to line up with a communications degree for you to work in the education. And most of the time that happens because those kids play sports and they put them in a communication degree. That's something that, I could keep them eligible. It's a whole big system behind all of this stuff. But they're not in a place that they can get a job afterwards. And I don't like that, because you can't just send them somewhere to send them. It got to be a plan. If you're going to go to college, it has to be a plan behind it. If you're going to do CTE, it has to be a plan behind it. And that's a lot of cases it's not happening.
Mm. So what misconceptions do people still have about CTE?
That is for kids that's not smart. Well, like he's not smart. He good with his hands. Send him to CTE. We got CTE for engineering. We got CTE for all, for AI, for everything, STEM, the whole nine. And I also have a problem that they put the kids that look like us, they put them in the service ones. They put them in the culinary this instead of putting them in the engineering. So that's a whole nother story. But it was always thought of as the kids that special needs kids, the kids that's not that bright, put them in CTE. No, you could get an associate's degree in your CTE pathway. You could get college credit. We're doing the same thing as the comprehensive. We actually do more. And that's not talked about enough. We do more for the students than the regular comprehensives do. You know, they could have the AP. We have AP and CTE too, in the AP STEM.
So, you know, as you think about it, and you said something earlier that that just ran through my mind, and I'm sorry that I missed this, but can you tell me what has the outreach been when it comes to the parents, and why are parents so slow to get to this process of what CTE is doing?
Well, you got to think about it. If most parents came through the system, so they understand college readiness. They understand that because they was a product of that too. They was taught this stuff. So there is no big marketing push for CTE. You don't see a commercial about the power of CTE on TV. You may see some educational things, and then when we have conferences, those conferences are not talked about the same way we talk about math. We test for math and English. We don't do anything like that for CTE. So what they think, math and English is important because this is going to help you get to college. Not understanding that CTE helps you with your content-specific vocabulary and your math skills as well. And it makes it relevant because you see how it's practiced in the real world. Most of the time with math and English, you don't see how you're going to use it in the real world.
Right.
You just don't. I always say this. I don't use the Pythagorean theorem in real world, but I know my CTE content in the real world.
Right. You know, it's amazing that you say that because there was a guest on the show, I think last week, that was talking about people not using the Pythagorean theory since school because a lot of people probably have either lost conceptually, you know, how to apply that, how to use it, and why it's important. Just like we know algebra is every day. So, in that whole process, when kids come into the CTE program, are there things that's basically keeping them more informed as to how to use this program, why it's important, and why there's so many areas that they can explore and learn to do so many things?
Cause that yes, because that's actually happening in their CTE program. They're seeing, okay, you could do this. I even brought an additional program that will deep dive into the career opportunities of an HVAC person or of it, so they could see, all right, I don't just have to do this. I could, it's 20 different options I can go. So now they more like a sponge because they see the pot at the end. You showing them the end. We got to do a better job. If regular education has to do a better job of that to keep these kids engaged because they're not engaged in that because they don't see the purpose of what they're doing. With CTE, you see the purpose of what you're doing. You see the why, the how, and what it's going to get you.
You know this. I'm sorry to do this plug, but I got to. You know what you just explained, what you just said just now, is exactly what's in your book. Let me ask you this: is your book is it like being used as a tool in schools right now that they should probably be looking at?
It should be. It's not like it should. It's not enough. Um, and it's been hard because I've been so busy doing so many different things. It's hard for me to promote and push, my personal projects, like I should. But that if you didn't get the book, please just get the book. It's just super cheap. Everything I do is to try to make sure I can get it in your hands. I'm not trying to, retire off of this, but I want to let you know what's out there and its possibilities. It's the hook that urban education needs. And I truly mean that because it changes kids' trajectory. And the more people that understand that, the better off they're going to be.
Mhm. So how does CTE create real world opportunity for students?
Well, like I said, when we have work-based learning coordinators, when they get to that second year, if they're in the share time or that third year in the full time, we're trying to get them out and doing internships, job shadowing, and things of that nature. That is a requirement by the state. a requirement. It's not an option. It's a requirement. We got to do right by these kids. And when they go through the program, they're getting something. Even if we can't get them a job because of their age or whatever, they're getting hands-on real world learning. We're bringing in people that, to talk to them, to meet with them, to show them what is all kind of things for them to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And with high school, in regular high school, we don't do that. You bring in, we have a college fair. That's all they do. But you don't know what direction that kid want to go. Well, at least with CTE, you're in the pathway. We give you all the options of the direction of that pathway. Now, if you choose to stay in it, that, or if you don't choose to stay in it, that's different. But at least you know all the options or opportunities that you have if you stay in this pathway.
So what makes CTE uniquely effective for underserved communities?
So first and foremost, the simplest answer is the cost value. You don't have to pay anything to get into the CTE program. You got to pay to go to college. You don't have to pay for CTE. We're giving you college credits. We're giving you industry value credentials. You just got to come to school and love what you do. And then if you do that, and then if you excelling at it, it's going to take you to a whole nother level and another level. So it's just how it works right there is it's free. Let's just say that. That should always be a key for you because you're not starting behind the 8 ball. You don't have to live with your parents like for 5 or 6 years because you can't afford to move out because you're paying student loans. Like those are the things that should, resonate with people because those are the quick fixes that we need in the community because the money will stay at home.
Again, and I just, I'm really, really, just wondering like why, well, this is two pronged because I think that, does it seem like, or am I misconstruing this that, with CTE, that depending upon the state, it varies as how the program is ran. The second part to this is with all of this great knowledge here that you're mentioning about this program. I mean, I'm just wondering, like, what can be done different or better to make parents more informed?
Okay. So yes, each state is different. They got different regulations, different rules, different testing requirements. So that's never going to change. But for the most part, they have the same understanding of what needs to be done. Now, the requirements to get to that point, that's what the issue. And then for the parents, in terms of that, we need to have more parent outreach. It needs to be more stuff in middle school. So that's where it started at. But they need to have a middle school fair for these parents before their child go to high school. Like in the beginning of the 8th grade year, not at the end, because that's what they made their decisions already. Before they start testing to go here to do all this stuff, the school should bring in somebody to speak to the parents and let them know the options and opportunities that these kids have by the school choice that they make. Because there is vocational schools. There are schools that they can go to, but they have to go through a process to get in there. And if they wait too late, they're going to miss the opportunity. So they need this information to make the best decision they can make as a parent. And that's where I think that's the easiest place to start. And we're not doing that there.
So, how do you ensure programs stay aligned with the workforce needs?
Well, for us, as simply as we have advisory boards and we invite all the industry people in that area. And they say, hey, this is no longer relevant. We don't use this no more at the shop. We use this. Guess what? We got to pivot to the thing that they're using now so we can make sure we're teaching the kids that. Then we also meet with the state when they say, hey, these are the new requirements. Make sure you're following the new requirements. And these are the new requirements. This is what we're going to do. So those are the 2-tier approach that we do. The industry people bring it in and also the state people tell us. And we take care of both of them. And we make that change immediately because we want to make sure those kids have the right thing so they can excel in that field.
So, what industries are most in demand right now?
Whew. Well, everything. I just had a meeting today. I was on a panel today for AI. AI is booming, and we talked about it, like those people are scared of AI, but it's going to help you. Those who know how to use AI is going to change the game. AI is actually hurting a lot of industries like graphics and things of that nature because in coding, because you could go jump on AI and not have to learn how to use those things. You could tell AI to make this graph. You could tell AI code this for me, and it could do it. So now those fields, you got to get creative. So you got to learn how to adapt to all the new technology, because over the next 6 months, the next year, we're going to see massive changes due to AI. So everybody that's out there listening, don't be scared of it. We was talking today that it's like cybernet and the Terminator. You think that stuff yes, that stuff is going to happen, but you need to know it so you could navigate around it, because it'll make your life easier as well.
Well, as you say that, I can definitely understand, the pertinence and the importance of AI. But do you think, even in the process of, how it carries with your program, do you think there's a such as an overuse of AI?
No, it's not an overuse because they don't know what they're doing. So, so it's, you got to learn better prompts. Like if you knew how to write a prompt or have a better prompt, you'll get a better result. So it's not overuse. You keep going back and forth because you don't like the answers you're getting because you ain't asking the right questions. So AI is actually, you could use it as a communication tool. You could go back and forth and have a conversation with it. I want this. Well, no, that's not the way I really meant. I meant this, and have it keep fleshing it out. The problem is AI will start thinking for you if you allow it to think for you. It'll be like, okay, Mr. King came in, he asked these questions all the time, so I'm gonna give him what he wants. And so you got to check AI and say, well, what's the source on that to make sure it's real, is legit, things of that nature. So you got to know how to prompt AI to give you what you need and say, hey, don't make up stuff. Give me factual stuff and cite it. Tell me where it's from so I can know that it's right. So when I present it to somebody, I know I put my best foot forward.
Wow. So how do you prepare students for jobs that don't exist yet?
Probably half of the jobs that they're going to have in the next 5 years don't exist yet. So you got to give them a baseline skill set. Baseline, like I said, they got to know AI because AI is embedded in everything we do. So you start there. They got to have communication skills, soft skills, or we call them professional skills. Those are non-negotiables. They got to have those things. And we like them to have credentials, safety skills like the OSHA and all that stuff. So wherever field you're working in, you understand the value of safety. You have that fundamental baseline background right there, you'll be able to pivot to anything because you know how to use AI, you care about safety, and you know how to talk to people. You'll be all right.
So, what role does technology play in modern CTE?
Oh, it's everything. Like so, I'm gonna go back to AI. Since that's the thing. AI is now embedded in everything across the board, and if you're not using it, you're behind. So they're going to compare you to the person that's using AI. And if you're working at half the efficiency of that person, why do I need you? Why am I paying you all this money? This person giving me the same thing in 10 hours that you're giving me in 20 hours.
Mm.
So, your technology skills have to be up to par. And like these kids know how to use everything under the sun because they got their phones, computers, this, but they're not applying it. So you got to teach them how to apply it into the real world.
So, how do you measure success in CTE programs?
So we measure success by the number of what we call completers. So you got participant, concentrated completers. That's how many kids we saw all the way through to the end. That's one level of success. I don't believe in doing it by that. They're saying, oh, all these kids finished the program. That makes the program successful. I think a successful program does more than that. It's to connect them with job opportunities, to connect them with careers and things of that nature. That's successful for me because that goes to my point of community changing, because they're now bringing that money back home to the community. If hey, everybody, like we all passed high school, we got out of high school, but does that make your high school successful? No, you can't say, oh, just because you finished something, you're successful. Then you got to add another layer to that and a bigger element, and that's what they're doing with that success and how that translates into job opportunities and things of that nature.
So, how do you get your educators on board in learning more and more about what's happening in the programs and some things that they should be maybe ahead of, in order to prepare the students to do? How do you get your educators on board and how do you get them trained?
So it starts with programs like this, getting the word out. Like the messaging has to be there. So for the county VOTEC schools, we good. We do that stuff. For the comprehensive schools, again, they're focused on a whole different element. They call themselves doing CTE, but they're not really doing CTE like they should do CTE because they're worried about their school report card. That's, like I'll get fired if my school report card's not right. So your school report card could look good, but you're not setting these kids up for success later on in life. Like I would rather have a bad report card to know I helped the right kids, change their life and change their trajectory. Put them in programs that work for them. Help them reach their goals that they may not even know they have, but you got to show them the opportunities. So that's why we do exploratory stuff so they can know what's out there and that is viable and that is real, that I could touch it. It's right here for me. And it's something that they could get to without having to go in debt. So the messaging has to be there. I would love for them to have a CTE campaign. If I was ever in politics, I'm never going to be in politics, but if I was in politics, that would be one thing, any educator that's in politics, if you have a CTE campaign, your community won't even know what to do because once they start to see the benefits of that, you're going to be the one that they say, thank you for that. Because, you open up this door, you open up this opportunity. So that's all I can think of right now is because there's so many things and I could talk for days about that, but it's frustrating because it's been put to the back burner.
Let's see, we got there's a there's a comment here. Actually, there's two. The first one is yes, indeed. This is from Mr. Rashad Helton, and this second one here is Mark Hill is asking, "What is CTE?"
Career and technical education. So it is a part of education, but it's career and technical education. It's education that's aligned to a career down the line. So let's say, for instance, we have welding. Welding is the career, and you get the education piece from us in the school now. We're teaching you how to be a proper welder, teaching you all the welding tricks and things of that nature, and getting you certified from AWS, from the American Welding Society. We're getting you ultra certified. So when you walk out of that classroom, you could get a job as an entry level welder.
So, can you tell us what does the future of CTE look like?
It's changing. Like I said, the future CTE is super important. I keep saying, I'll address that Wall Street Journal. It's the new millionaire class, so it's extremely important. It's not going anywhere. It's just how schools embrace it. So if you embrace it, your students are going to excel. So please, if any educators out there that's in comprehensive schools that don't understand the power of it, it's powerful. It's really powerful, and it will change these kids' lives. It will get them to come to school. I always tell them to schedule their CTE in the beginning of the day. Who's going to miss their favorite class? Who's going to come late to their favorite class? You put so.
Well, I want to thank you guys for those questions. Oh, there's another one here before we move on, and this is from Mark. He says thanks.
Appreciate you.
So let's go a little bit more in depth here. Underneath the surface of hitting the real spot. Let's talk about some equity, access, and the underserved communities. Why do underserved communities benefit so deeply from CTE pathways?
Well, because you don't need a lot. So, most of the time when the barrier to college is you need money. The
Mhm.
rich kids got money, they can go. The poor kids don't got money; they can't afford to go. You don't need anything. You need to be, I live in this area. I could go here. I live in this, like in New Jersey, we got counties. I live in this county. I could go to the county Votech. I could get into my CTE, or my high school may have CTE. I don't have to pay for this. So I'm interested in it. It's not costing me anything. I just got to come to school. That's the game changer, because it doesn't matter your economic status now. It just matters you getting up to go to school.
Mm-hmm.
Where now you're on an even playing field. That's big.
So can I just ask you this, and maybe you can tell me if this is relative to what you just mentioned or not. Is this where you were mentioning about having like the pitch decks to get this out to where people know what's happening, what this is, and why you should be a part of it?
Yes, because even though it's an economic, it helps you with the economics, and it's not a barrier anymore. But parents still believe the best way for their kids to escape poverty and escape this is for them to go to college. It is a way, but it's not the only way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's what they need to know. Look, you have more than one option. You can't put all your eggs in that basket, because a lot of kids go to college and come back after the first year, because they wasn't prepared for college, because they wasn't interested in school.
Right.
So it was better off being in the CTE path so they could do something that they was interested in.
Wow. That's one of the things that I believe, just as I look at this, I look at CTE as you're explaining this, and I compare it to those private schools.
Okay.
Where the private schools have got all of these things that's going on here for these students. They're very resourceful because they can afford this.
Bingo.
I'm sorry for saying it that way, but that's true. But then when you have the CTE program that's creating more than a resource, but it's creating that opportunity that says you need to go do this, where you don't have to worry about paying this much for college. If you want to go to college, earn first and not have to worry about student loan debt.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And a lot of these companies pay for these kids to go back and get their paperwork if they want them to have it, because you got your foot in the door already.
Yes. So how do you address systemic barriers that limit access to opportunity?
You address it with education and communication. The barriers are going to be there. And for us, the barrier may be, like I said, it may be the parents, it may be the guidance counselor, it may be the local school that don't want them to leave and go to a tech school. So there's different barriers there. It may even be their friends. Like, they don't want to leave their friends. So, but you have to, get the messaging right. Like, I wrote an article, CTE has a marketing problem. And, we got to do a better job of marketing so they know, hey, listen, we still boys, but I got to go here because I want to do this. And this is going to help me get to that place. You got to say, Mom, this is what I want to do. And then for you and your mom to be able to go back and forth, and then she can see the value of it because it's a plan.
Right.
Exactly. You got to have the plan readily accessible for them to say, oh, you could go to this, you could get to this, you could make this kind of money. We don't have to worry about you being in debt. Yes, those are options. They need to have these options. And I'm not saying do not go to college. Don't get me wrong. That is an option, but it's not an option for everyone. It's not one size fit all. And that needs to be the case. They need to understand that you can go left and still get to home, and you can go right and still get home.
I'm gonna make this suggestion to you. What you just said, that's slide one of the pitch deck.
Okay.
That's slide one, because that's true factually. College is not for everybody. Not everybody can afford college. Not everybody wants to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just understanding, from that perspective, that's the first thing you want to hear. Now you want to know why. So now you're able to go deeper and deeper in those layers to explain what's the importance of this program.
Yes.
Because there's nothing but value in this program. It's just a matter of Why are you not finding out about it and taking advantage of it? You know?
Indeed.
Uh, so, what does culturally relevant CTE look like in practice?
Well, it's sort of like what I was saying earlier is when you have the the African Americans put into you know customer service type of CTE instead of the uh, engineering CTE and things of that nature. Everyone needs to have the same opportunity because you don't know what they bring to the table. If they're good enough to get in and be successful at it, they need to be there. If that's what they're passionate about, they need to be there. You can't limit their options based on their zip code
Yes.
in their skin color. So, that it happens all too often where they would push them. Oh, you're gonna go into auto. You're gonna go into culinary.
Ooh.
You're not gonna go into the thinking side of CTE. So you're gonna go into the hands-on side.
Mhm.
So
Ooh, a cut off onto that. That's a whole nother show.
yes,
So
sir.
I'm gonna write that down because that's a whole nother show, and that definitely deserves to be noted and talked about.
Okay, I'm here for it.
Yes, sir. How do you rearrange students who have been written off?
Well, that's tough because I don't get to work with students on a day-to-day basis. I'm a program builder. I'm a program manager. That's a guidance issue. Teacher. So if a teacher telling me that I got a really great kid, but he's overlooked, you'll advocate for that kid. But that's more so the building level administration that needs to address those things because it really never gets to me. So that's a tough one for me to answer because I'm kind of removed from that situation right now.
Okay. So what role do families play in student success?
So as I touched on earlier, they're a big part. They're the first decision maker. They're the initial contact that's saying, no, you can't go here because I want you to go to college. I want you to go to college, not what the kid wants, what the kid interested in. So that happens a lot. That I want you to do this, I want you to do that. So the kid do it to make their family happy, but they're not happy with what they're doing. And so they end up going to college and dropping out or going to college and not being successful because that wasn't what they really wanted in the first place, but they couldn't say no.
Mm. So can you tell us what's the difference in you being an administrator now and not an educator?
See, I used to be a vice principal and I felt more like an educator because I had my hands on the kids, so to speak. When they could come to me, they come to my office, they sit down and talk to me. Kids don't come to my office no more. I don't have any more of that. I make policy. I buy you the stuff you need. I make sure everything is in place for that program to run smoothly. The curriculum is up to date. We do all these type of things. Like I'm a straight back end person. Now I have less stress because dealing with kids issue was a different kind of stress. I love them to death, but some days I need to. But I miss that though because I felt that impact daily.
Mhm.
I felt that that guidance that I was given was felt daily. I don't my impact is felt differently now, and that's if I miss anything, I miss that, just that day-to-day interaction, because that just showed me that my purpose was true and my purpose was real. Because the kids that a lot of people wrote off, I'm like, man, this kid bad, he don't listen to nobody but you. And I love it when I hear that because that means I got through to that kid. Now you need to figure out the same way I did to get through to that kid as well. It should never be I'm the only one that can get through to the kid. So, it's one of those things that I miss, but that's the big difference for me. There's a daily as opposed to I see a big picture impact. Oh, the program changed. We got all these wonderful things. Yes, that's what I see now, as opposed to I help this kid out right away.
Mhm. So how do you build trust in communities that have been historically underserved?
You got to show and prove. You got to show them better than you could tell them. Like the results got to speak for themselves. I can't just, it's like a politician. Politician, when it's voting time, they come around, promise you the world. Then after you vote for them, you may get 10% of that stuff they promise. So I'm not gonna promise you anything. I gotta show you. I gotta put my stuff out there and say, look, this is what happens when you did this. And now here are the results. So now the parents say, you know what, he's right, because these things are happening. I see more people, young people getting jobs. I see more people, young people having this, that, and the third. You have to show them. And that's the only way it's going to change.
So, what are the biggest equity gaps you see today?
Um, just based on zip code, certain schools have more than other schools, and the schools, like a lot of inner city schools, believe it or not, get a lot of money, but the money is mismanaged because they don't know what they don't know. So I hate when schools paying for consultants and they paying half of their budget for consultants. That means you ain't hired the right people. If I got to pay to bring in people that's going to fix my problems, I ain't hired the right people. So now the money is not being used properly to put it back into programming and put it back into schools for kids. So I hate when I see that. But the biggest issue is that the most teachers want to go to where they're perceived as a better environment. So I may lose the best and brightest to certain areas because they follow through on what they're supposed to do for their teachers and their administrators. And it's harder to follow through in a tougher area because you're dealing with so many different variables that's going on. And they want you to do all this extra paperwork that has nothing to do with running a school or running, or getting them to where they need to be. It's just, I need data, data, data. And that's taken away from the main thing that you're out there trying to achieve.
Now, as I understand, I know that this may be systemic, but when you think about, the things that have to, be done to keep the program flowing and to keep everything the way it's supposed to go, um, do you think that it's equitable to maybe have more outreach, like into like communities that are underserved, like maybe like how they have those recreational centers, or they have these little convention centers of some sort, to talk a little bit more about how this program is, because I have to say this, and I hope the audience is listening to this for real, because actually after reading your book, I mean, there's so many ways or so many creative ideas that you introduce into this while talking about that program, that I'm just trying to figure out, why is this not bigger from a national perspective?
It's just one of those things. So can you repeat the question? I want to make sure I get it right, because you
About that outreach.
okay. Now the outreach, it will be amazing if they would do that right there, because I said it before when I talk about the exploratory thing. Those like community centers, stuff like that, will be there prime for the exploratory stuff. That way, hey, listen, here's 5 or 6 different pathways you could choose from. Let's play it. This today we're going to do this one. Tomorrow we'll do that one. Let the kids touch it, feel it, understand it. Like, hey, I really like this one. I don't like that one too much. So now the kids kind of can make a better decision. And if you give them the opportunity to understand what you're trying to get them to do, then they can say, I like this. And that'll be something that they'll be more interested in doing. And you'll see a lot of changes that way. So that's a part of the marketing that I'm talking about. If you do that type of stuff, the marketing, the branding, and they say, hey, every year we're going to have this, they're going to come and show us all this exploratory stuff. I used to do, during February, which is CTE month, I used to do a CTE fair. So all my ninth graders got to see all the programs that we had in the school. And then at that point, I'm like, you're going to have to pick a program. You'll pick your top 2 choices. So just in case you can't get in number 1, you get in number 2. So that's the best way I could do it. And like 90% of those kids did well because they got to pick and choose their classes based off of what they was interested in.
Mm. So, how do you ensure students of color have access to high demand career pathways?
Well, like it's everybody's supposed to have the same opportunity, and that's one thing we believe in at my current district is that everybody could take the same test, everybody bound by the same rules. So that's right there makes the playing field even. But then take it a step further, um, we got to make sure we're recruiting in these urban school districts as well, and you letting them know about it. Even if they don't come here, they need to know about CTE where the school they attend to. Like, hey, you got these programs here. Well, I'm gonna get into this program even because I like it. So just to make them understand, the awareness has to be broader and bigger. So
So, can you tell me throughout the state, do students have free reign to where if they're looking for a program, a CTE program, and if it's not in their school, do they have the free reign to go to a school or a location that's got that program?
So it's a yes and no answer. So we have counties, 21 counties. So if you don't go to your local school, you could potentially go to your county school, but those you have to test to get into the county school. You got to get into that slot. So a lot of parents would do it even if they just to have that spot secure, just in case they don't go to the local school. They'll come test with us and all that stuff, and then they'll say, all right, I'm gonna go to my local school anyway, but I just wanted to make sure I had that option. So you only could go to the county school that you're in or a private school. That's what you got to pay for. So those are your three options. Well, actually, if you say charter, so that'll make it four.
So, what does true educational justice look like?
Standing up for the little guy, standing, making sure every student has access and equity to every program that's available to every other student. And it's not a zip code thing, is not an economic thing, and it's not a color thing. It's a student thing. As long as their blood is blue in their vein, we all the same in that regard. So make sure every student has the same opportunity, and the chips fall where they may. Then after that point, but I gave them 1 through 10. This student got 1 through 10. It has to be even.
So, how do you advocate for students who feel invisible in the system?
That's tough. Especially now in my position. Yeah, You know, it's hard for me to have relationships with students because I'm so far removed. But the ones who I know, and they're asking for this, they're asking for that. We got to do a better job as adults of listening to students. And I think that was my big issue when I was in the high school. Adults always brush students off. Like, I ain't trying to hear that. And that's what, so students don't, you'll get a lot of discipline problems when the students feel unheard. But I used to bring them in and like, get it off your chest, even if I don't want to hear it. If you gotta yell, scream, if you gotta say a couple curse words, get it off your chest. Now, after you did that, now I'm gonna tell you right from wrong after that. But I was able to break down that barrier there. So the communication and the listening has to be on point. That's the only way you're going to change that.
Let's move over to your community building and community development.
Okay.
How does CTE strengthen entire communities, not just individual students?
I briefly said it before. It's a game changer. It brings the money back into the community. And now I don't have to move. I don't have to leave. Like I said, I left. So I'm still living in my same house. I got a job as a plumber. I'm making $100,000. That money is coming back into my community. I'm buying local. I'm supporting local business. Local business is staying open, as opposed to I'm leaving with all of that money and I'm supporting somebody else's area in their local business, keeping them open. And now the people in my area don't have that money, that influx of money, they're going out of business. And you see that in a lot of urban centers that most people left, or it's getting gentrified.
Yep, and
So
that's the exact reason.
And so if we stay there, if we have a reason to stay there and we can afford to stay there because we're CTE and we're making good money, we don't have to go nowhere. And our family been in these houses for a long time, so they mostly paid off. So you don't have that bills like that. That's a big game changer, and not enough people talk about that. That's a potential to uplift these urban centers.
So, what partnerships are essential for community-centered education?
Well, it's a big thing with CTE. You got to have community partners. You got to have industry-based partners. So, like I said, if I'm doing electrical, I want to have the unions. I want to have, electrical shop owners. Anybody that I can get on there. I need to bring them to the table so they could tell me how to do this, how to help me, whatever, give me the guidance that I need to make sure we're doing right by the students. So the partnership is number one big indicator, because I can't get kids jobs without partnerships.
Right.
These partnerships going to help me get the jobs, even if you don't have a job for me. But Mike's electrical, he hiring. You might want to give him a call. Here's his card. Tell him I said. Those are relationships that help you help kids. So that's why we have dedicated people to go out and do that stuff. We have, the work-based learning coordinators. That's their job. They got to go out and secure placement for these kids, get partnerships, and build up their network.
So what does community development look like through an educational lens?
We're a piece of the puzzle. The more educated your community is, the better off it's going to be, the better decisions they make, the better opportunities they can have. And education just ain't, college education. This CTE is education. The E is for education. So make sure they understand that it's an upliftment piece. And if we need to work hand in hand, and that needs to be understood, that we are a big part of changing this community as well.
So how do you build programs that reflect the culture of the community?
Well, again, like I said, we don't do programming unless we do a comprehensive local needs assessment to know what the needs are of our county. So that means the needs of the county, the jobs in the county. That way I can provide these students with opportunities to get jobs and make money right around where they live at. That way the money stay there and they don't have to leave.
So let's talk about education reform and the systemic change. What is the biggest flaw in traditional education?
Test scores, and like, it's a bunch of rich people that tell you that you got to do testing so we can have standardized testing. Rich people made the standardized testing, and then they try to say, well, this area is better than that area. Well, this area got, parents, the kids had breakfast this morning. In this area, kids don't know where their next meal is at. And you want to compare, that's not comparing apples to apples. That's comparing apples to oranges. And that don't mean that this area is better than the next area. So I hate standardized testing for that regard, because a lot of kids don't even care about it. They just get burnt out by the amount of testing that we have to have, but they try to use it as a justification for funding. Oh, your school is not meeting this requirement for this, we got to shut it down, or we got to make these changes, whatever. But we can do standardized tests until we blue in the face, and the kids still can't read or write. So that's not the end all be all. So I hate those type of testing, because it makes this connotation that one is better than the other. Then you got schools that just teach to the test so they can do well at it. You're not helping students. It got to be about students. Everything, we got into education to help students. So let's help students. Testing like that is not helping students.
I agree with you 500%. I agree with you 500% on that. And that's where, a lot of schools and a lot of communities get a bad deal. Mm-hmm. Because in order to come up to a standard that don't really exist other than how it's being seen. Okay, so if I'm the judge, the jury, and the prosecutor, and your school could be doing this where at least it's at the point of a meet. If I don't like that, I'm going to say it fails. So you're going to force these teachers to teach to a test. Georgia's a great example of that. I'm sure you heard about that scandal that they supposedly talked about, where in actuality, they were doing what they were told to do, right? And so you still can't win. My thing is, If you got so many students, because it's true to form, something you said earlier, true to form, you've got a lot of kids that are in high school that still can't read. And that is even on the level of a fifth grader. So if they still can't read and they still can't write, and that's even those that's in these supposedly quote unquote private schools, they can't read either. They
Right.
just get the pass for privilege. So when it comes down to it, you got a kid that's in an underserved community that may have had the opportunity, that's gotten through, that's pushed through, that's actually set him or herself apart, but they still are under the person that still cannot read or write or lead.
Mhm.
So that's right there in itself shows that the system itself is not equitable. So in that whole case, if we're going to push for real reform, what are some suggestions that you have that we can do other than saying, oh, we need to do standardized testing?
What can we do? That's a dangerous question right there, because um, number one, like, is a lot of funding metrics. So you hear a lot of complaints about certain districts like, oh, I pay too much money for education and it goes to the inner city. So that's when you get politics, D's and R's and all that stuff. Um, the funding matrix has to be proper so that you're not wasting money. Like I feel like there's a lot of waste in education, from the charter schools, the public charter schools, and all of the issues with the special needs, in the way that they fund it, in the way that people know how to work the system to get the money out of it. Um, I believe we get a lot of money from the federal government, and we have to go through all these rules and regulations to spend that money, which makes people give back a lot of money. I know districts that don't accept money because it's too much paperwork to spend it. Like I got to do 20 pages of paperwork to spend this $20,000. It ain't worth it. So you got to make it easier and more accessible for them to be able to get access to this funding that can help fund the program or help do these things, instead of making it so hard. Um, a lot of things with education for us, for in the CTE world, is to make them have access to getting their certification. So if I'm an electrician and I want to be a teacher, all of a sudden, you want me to go back to school for 2 years to learn how to teach? That's crazy. Or like I said this before in another, I had a person that had a master's degree and was teaching in college, but she could not get certified to teach in high school. So you gotta break down these barriers to having access to quality people, access to the money. It's just a lot of things that's crazy with education. And now that you can't fold Department of Education into Department of Labor, they got two different functions.
Yep.
They don't function the same. Um, you know, that's a more of a political thing, and it's way above my pay grade, but that just doesn't make sense to me.
So would you suggest, that in trying to create an equitable system within the system to be funded and to push through the system that could change it really, really inside out?
Like it's almost like you got to change it is radical.
Well,
You
that's
got
what
to
anything that's outside the norm is considered
it's going
radical.
to be considered radical, yes. And that won't happen because you're not going to have enough people that's going to back it, because they're going to be scared. And with the internet and the media now, they could just change up everything on you. So I think you got to do it piece by piece, little by little. You got to have the small victories, and win this battle and go to the next battle, because you can't do it all. So I'm gonna do 5% this year, 5% next year. You got to chip away, um, but you got to be consistent with your messaging. You cannot switch up. You cannot change. I'm going to be consistent. This is what I believe, and this is how I feel because this is where I came from. Like, a lot of people change up. They're, year 5, I'm still talking about it. Year 6, I made a lot of money. Now I gotta stay on this side because I want to keep my money. You can't do that. Please don't do that. Like, 'cause you should be in it for these babies and for these kids, and you gotta keep fighting the good fight. I lost friends. I lost opportunities because I was for the kids, and I felt certain people wasn't for the kids. And you just gotta stay, true to yourself.
So, why is relevance more important than reform?
Because that's what we call you see my book, the hook. That's the
Right.
hook. It's relevant. It's relevant to them in their life now. We talk about history and stuff like that. That's in the past. What's going to, the kids want to know, how's it going to impact me? That's this generation now. It's weird. So you got to show this generation why this is going to be successful for them, why this is working for them, and how this is going to get you to that bag that you want. And then you show them that, they're going to pay attention now.
So, how do we redesign education to meet the needs of today's students?
You put all the information in the forefront. You don't hide the information. That's what seems to happen most of the time. You just go to school and do the same thing over and over, rinse, wash, repeat, and you think it's supposed to, something different supposed to happen. They, you know, they'll do something for a couple of years, then get rid of it and bring it right back 4 or 5 years later. See, so you're gonna get the same result before, you just called it something differently. So we can't keep doing the same thing over and over. We gotta make sure we meet the kids where they at and give them something that's viable for them so they can understand, all right, this is my why, this is my how. And you'll get so much more out of them because they are more mature than what you understand and what we give them credit for. Don't talk down to them, talk to them and listen to them in the same token.
So, what policies need to change to expand CTE access?
Well, that's tough because that depends on your school. Like, um, policies need to be, we need to have a CTE in every school. That's what I would, that needs to totally happen. Because CTE could be any type of programming, but I need a 3 course and it's not an elective. So what happens in a lot of schools is they'll make CTE, they'll call themselves having CTE, but they'll dump kids in there, and that's an elective at that point because CTE is a pathway, so you can't dump kids in there. So you got to make sure you have at least one pathway that's going to help your community. You can have electives, yes, but the CTE pathway is not an elective.
How do we ensure equity is built into the system, not added on?
Start at the top. Like, the, the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, directors, the principals, they got to understand it got to be an investment into CTE. Like, you're going to get money. The best thing about CTE, if you do it right, the state give you money. They give you money in the form of Perkins funds. So if you do the right thing, you're going to get a good chunk of money that you could reinvest right back into CTE. And it's a cost saving for you. I dealt with a lot of money this year because we did right by CTE. We did our reports. We did everything necessary. We got money back to put into programs, to buy high level equipment, to pay for this, to pay for that. So if you do right by CTE, it would do right by you.
So, with that, just to add on to what you just answered there, does that expand the school itself in general, or is that just going to just expand a part of a program or the program itself?
It expands the program because everything you do with CTE is aligned to the program. So I got to put the program zip code and why am I buying that? So if I'm putting the zip code for Allied Health, and this is what I'm buying. So I can expand the program, like the expand the facilities. That's a capital project. We don't really do that. I buy high level equipment. I could, with CTE, some really expensive stuff. But in the same token, that's really just about making sure the program is robust and the students have everything that they need. Like, I'm mirroring the hospital, so we're gonna have everything that the hospital have here. And And that's how you fund that with your CTE and your Perkins.
So, what does accountability look like in education reform?
Accountability is doing what you're supposed to do, filling out the paperwork like you're supposed to fill out the paperwork, doing the recruitment like you're supposed to do the recruitment, having the meetings that you're supposed to have, using the proper curriculum that you're supposed to have. We have a lot of stuff that's in place that's not being followed through on, and the problem is because the day-to-day operations is so overwhelming with the amount of paperwork that teachers and administrators have to do. No one talks about that. They give them way too much paperwork that it makes no sense. But everybody try to justify their existence and justify why they're doing this and why we spend money on that. So it's paperwork, paperwork, paperwork. And then you're taken away from the real reason that you're here. You're not here for paperwork. You're here for the kids.
So, how do we prepare educators for the future of learning?
They got to learn AI. Like I said, like no, and it's I'm saying that with a smile, but um, AI and prompting will help teachers. So let's think about it. I got a lot of paperwork as a teacher. I got to do lesson plans. AI can help you with your lesson plans if you have the proper prompts in there. So you put in your lesson plan template, you put in a good prompt, then you put in your stuff for your lesson and tell it to fill it out. Now that would normally take you an hour. It just took you 5 minutes.
Mm,
You save time.
mhm. Oh, wow.
So
That's interesting.
work smarter, not harder.
So, what role should government play in expanding CTE?
Just funding, that's it. Otherwise, I want them to stay out of it because when if the government is involved, when you change, um, from left to right, is that they're going one gonna want it, one not gonna want it. Just stay out of it. Like just have a cap on your funding and just fund it and let people do what they got to do. If it's not successful, then you should jump in. But if it is, stay away from that because they always cut education. It's like I don't know why they go for the education, but I have my own thoughts on that, and that's a political thing, so I don't want to touch that. But leave education alone. Everybody needs education, no matter what you are.
Yeah, well, I think that only pertains to particular schools in particular districts is when they get involved like that.
Yes.
Because they don't want you to have too much and learn too much and be a whole lot better. So that's the purpose of not of taking resources from other areas. Because I'm gonna tell you something that I've never said this before, but I'm gonna say it now. I actually lived in another part of this wonderful metro area. How about our tax dollars were not being used for us? Our tax dollars were being used for the folk over on the north side of this perimeter.
That's not right.
Of course, it's not right. But when you fight about it and you put it out there in the media, or when you talk about it too much, then they want to try to slide just a little bit of compensation to make you shut up if you decide to. But this is like the thing that's happening with so many schools because if I live where I live, my tax dollars need to go over into this area to take care of this school.
That's
My
right.
money does not need to go to these to these other folk because you want to come up with some creative bull crap to say, oh well, look what we have up here. But you have so many people that feed and bite into that. That's why
Correct.
systems like that exist and will continue to exist because there are people that look like you and I that should know better and know how that works, but they're for that.
Amen. That's all. uh
And see, you know, well, and let me go to the other part because see, that is something that when we talk about education, I'm with you 500% on that because it matters. But when it comes to black kids, they do not think that it matters. And so when you stand up and you call them out for what it is, because the devil don't like the truth.
No.
The devil don't like the truth. But when you call that out, then all of a sudden they want to point a finger at you,
Yes,
But
sir.
I want them to point fingers at me as much as they want to because I'm going to shout this out as much as I want to because I do not care about that. Because the truth is always going to be the truth. And somewhere, somehow, there's going to be a way to get through this because I really hate the fact that we're in the 21st century and they're still trying to keep black kids from learning. They want to keep black folk uneducated. But again, I have to say, there are people that look like you and I that's for that because they feel like they've made it.
Well, that's what I said. It ain't about your money. Like you can't make money now and turn your back on where you're from. I hate that happens. If anything, you got to lean in because that's your support system. But
Yeah. How do we protect CTE from becoming underfunded or undervalued?
so it's funny because they talk a good game about this. So, but the problem is they don't have enough qualified people on the back end for CTE, and that's where I worry some because I'm not going to join, become a teacher and have to go back to school for 2 years. You got to make things easier for these people to get involved and help CTE grow. So to protect it is to do common sense things. Like they say about guns, have common sense laws. You gotta have common sense for CTE. Like this person worked 20 years in the trade. He knows this stuff like the back of his hand. He They ain't about school. Like, make alternate route. I went, it was 1 year. Now they made it 2 years because they're trying to milk the money. Make it go back to 1 year. Yes, they need to learn how to teach in the classroom. I get that part because I've been through that. But I didn't have to go for 2 years. Now you made it 2 years. Nobody wants to do that. And you got to pay to do it. So,
None refunded if you don't get the certification.
so make it make sense. Like just not make it hard. They just need to know the basic teaching pedagogy of how to run the classroom, how to deal with certain things. And it was greatly helpful for me because I didn't know what I was doing in the classroom. I knew my content, but going through that program for a year helped me out. You don't need 2 years of that. And I'm gonna stand on that and scream that as much as I can and make certifications easier so you can get more people. It's a teacher shortage for a reason. You done raise the standards up through the roof. Your standards is way higher for a teacher than it is for a cop, for ICE, this, down the third, and you want to pay them more money. So
Uh, what is your vision for the future of education in America?
CTE everywhere, for the next 10, 15 years to even this out. And then everybody can make the best option and best opportunity available for them moving forward. But like right now, that's the easy win. If you go into a trade, you guarantee because we're so short staffed, it's an easy win. So get everything on a level playing field, and then just make sure every student knows option A, option B, and they need to say college and career readiness. That needs to be the message moving forward. Both of them are simultaneous, not one above the other.
Final question for you. What does sustainable community impact look like?
Sustainable community. When the community is behind everything, and when I say everything, I mean communities behind the education. Community is with you in with the stores, every, we keeping everything in house, so to speak. When you say the community like that, um, I remember growing up where I felt community, and like I said, community raised me. And when I had people that wasn't my family telling me do this, do that, or I'm gonna tell your mom. Um, I wish we could get back to that. I don't see that with the use of technology. Kids don't come outside like they used to. But the community, we need to have more community projects where we get together and realize that we all in this together, and we need to take care of our zip code or our street, or our streets. Um, and that starts with our leaders. Our leaders got to do better. because I think a lot of times now our leaders just in it for the money, and they're not in it for to change their community. And like I said, I hate hearing all this talk when it's election time because they'll give you this big talk and do 5% of what they say. I need people to put their money where their mouth is and let their actions back up their words.
Well, um, so in closing, are there any uh, uh, comments? Are there any words of wisdom and encouragement that you could leave for our audience? How they can connect with you on social media? Tell them about your website, all those wonderful things.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to say I'm starting my own education conference, and I'm doing it this summer in Atlantic City, New Jersey. So I want to take the time to plug that, and that's how the best way to reach me. It's called the Lead Education Summit, www.leadeducationsummit.com. And like I said, Atlantic City, New Jersey is about access and equity for urban and rural education. So it's a little bit more CTE with a twist, so to speak, because I'm making sure I do a lot of things for education, but I am focused on the underserved communities to make sure that I engage with the teachers and the educators to help them bring stuff back to their community that can better their kids. So that's a big undertaking for me. So I'm excited about that, and I just wanted to share that.
Um, okay, actually just got another comment that's late here, but Software says he's sorry that he missed this.
Tell him it's recorded. He can watch it.
Yes, sir. So before I close, I want to tell you how much I appreciate you and I thank you for coming on the show again to um, to spread this word not only about CTE but just education in general because it really means a lot to all of our underserved and marginalized communities. And it really means so much more when we can actually get together, as you say, and make this work the way it's supposed to be. If we don't do it, nobody else will.
Correct.
And I got to tell you, you definitely given me more food for thought. That something else that I want to actually try to delve into and come up with some problem solving methods and techniques myself. Because I've spoken this before, but I just hate the fact that again, like I said, we're in the 21st century, and it's like we're not making any steps primarily you know. And I know that you have folk that still do what they do, but I'm trying to be. I want to be more progressive about it, shall I say? Because I want to say the hell with all of that. But let me do this closing monologue because it's more than just a tribute to you and the work you do, but it's a tribute to our education system, and we will close after this. And I've called this the hook that changes everything.
Okay.
As we close tonight, I want to honor the truth that Troy Long brought into this space. Relevance is not a luxury, it is a lifeline. When education speaks the language of the community, when it reflects the culture of the students, when it connects learning to real opportunity, it becomes more than a system, it becomes a pathway, a bridge, a promise. CTE is not just about careers, it's about dignity, it's about access, it's about giving young people the tools to build a future they can see, touch, and believe in. And when we invest in that kind of education, we invest in the future of our communities, our workforce, and our nation. Tonight, we were reminded that equity is intentional, that opportunity is engineered, and that hope is built one student, one classroom, one community at a time. This is the work, this is the mission. This is America in Black and White. And I want you all to have a great evening. And please join us tomorrow for Final Word Friday. I'm your host, Charles King. You guys have a great evening. Thank you again, Troy.